Hello, good evening, and welcome to SciTrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. And I am this evening joined by this idiot over here.
Hi.
Um, tonight we are going to talk about Stargate, and because the rumours continue, did a video a couple of nights ago talking about how there is a rumour that I've been told that actually a couple of the producers or the guys that created or that no, they didn't create The Expanse, did they? They adapted The Expanse for TV. Hawk Ostby and Mark Fergus have been tapped up to look at Stargate and to maybe put a proposal forward for if they were allowed to do Stargate, what would they do? For a start, we'll talk about that. Matt, why are you looking at me sideways? Look at the camera.
It's so awkward looking at the camera.
You're not. So what did you think about this rumor for a start? What jumps out at you?
Well, having watched The Expanse, I've not seen all of it yet, so don't spoil any of it. Spoil the later seasons. But having watched it, knowing that these guys have worked on it, gives me lots of exciting feelings.
Does it make you warm in your trouser area?
Yes, happy in my trousers. Yes.
Inappropriate humor to start the day. You gotta love it.
Just knowing that the guys involved in The Expanse, which is a great show, if they're going to come in and do Stargate, which is one of my favorite shows, I don't know, it just makes me feel excited because The Expanse is fantastic.
I think it is an exciting possibility, and I think they'd give it a different take. I've had a few hateful messages because some people are very much Brad or nothing, Brad or bust. And I think, I would ask people, if you're watching the video this evening, don't blame the messenger. It's not my fault. You don't need to. I know, actually, 99% of people don't, but one or two idiots have been quite hateful towards me. It's not my fault. One person called me an effing liar because they say, well, you said that it was about to get greenlit. He goes, well, because it was. When MGM were in charge, it was about to get greenlit. They got Brad Wright to make that script, and they thought that as soon as Amazon sale went through that they'd be allowed to make it, and then Amazon went, no. They actually got thought that, a couple of people have called me a liar about this, but another piece of proof about this actually is James Bond. MGM were ready to go with René Jean Page as James Bond. I mean, he was the bookies' number one favorite. I mean, if you follow what the bookies say, the bookies tend to know. There was loads of stories about it, but then he signed on to do The Saint. MGM thought that, well, he can still do it. It's fine. He can do The Saint and do Bond. And Amazon went, no, he can't. So it's because they're very similar characters, and we need Bond to be special. It's our flagship MGM product. René Jean Page can't do it. So it threw them back to the drawing board. They started thinking about Idris Elba again. Which is not, I know for a fact that's not what they want to do. They want to go for a young pre-007 Bond and sort of do a reboot, start again sort of thing. So it's just the problem is the same as happened with Stargate. Amazon have gone in and gone, this is shit. And had to start again. But anyway. So the rumors keep happening and they keep bouncing around that maybe we'd be looking at a hard reboot. All right. So, all right, because we've got a soft reboot. A soft reboot is like Star Trek: The Next Generation. All right. Soft reboot. Same universe, different characters. Right. Hard reboot is like everything that's happened before didn't happen. So I'm just going to say to you first, straight off the bat, what is your gut feeling if they were to do a hard reboot?
Initially, if anyone ever says hard reboot, I'm just like, no. But if it's done right, I'm open to it. If it's done right, I don't see the problem I have with the hard reboot is because there's 20 odd years of existing characters and stories. If they do a hard reboot and then try and do them again, it's not going to have the same impact. Like if they try and do Anubis again, like that was amazing the first time, but it wouldn't be amazing the second time. Same with the Replicators. Well, maybe the Replicators actually, but
no, I would say actually the Replicators is possibly a better example than Anubis because they did the Replicators to death. You could argue, they really because they were a good baddie.
Yeah.
Anubis is only in like 12 episodes.
True.
Something like that, maybe 16, something like that. It wasn't as many as I thought. I was Googling it today because I dropped a comment on it saying, no, Anubis is frozen on the planet in that kernel. You're wrong. You're on about something else. I was like, no, we see Anubis again because they were commenting on our Anubis video when Anubis is a great bad guy. We see Anubis's ascended part in the Reckoning episodes. So I happened to notice it's only 12 or something like that episodes.
With the Replicators, if they were to do them again, obviously you have the initial Replicators, the little bug crawly things that you never see anyone actually die from them, from the little bugs.
Door closes.
But the big thing with the Replicators was that they eventually evolved into a human-like form.
Yeah.
So they couldn't do it again because we already know that's going to happen. If the Replicators come in, we go, oh, it's just a matter of time before Fifth comes back.
Yeah.
And there'll be no sort of like theory crafting. Like with a lot of TV shows, people theory craft and like, well, what could happen? Who are we going to see next? And it happens a lot with comic book shows like The Flash. People are always like basically spoiling it for themselves, thinking, Reverse Flash is going to come back. Oh, now we've got Godspeed or we've got Savitar.
Yeah, because
they're already pre-existing.
Which we have a lot with Marvel movies, don't we? We already know, which is why Marvel know that though, and they twist stuff all the time, don't they, to sort of like keep us guessing. But see, my problem has always been, and I wouldn't, if they went hard reboot, it's not Stargate. Right, for a start, I make this argument that if they hard reboot Firefly and they just remake Firefly, it's not Firefly anymore. It's just a show called Firefly. It's a completely different show. So it might be brilliant, it might be awful, but I'm not going to get excited about it any more than I would any other show I know nothing about because it just happens to be called Stargate. There will be a big circular thing that they walk through to go to other planets. Other than that, we know nothing about it. So I'm not going to get excited about it. It'll just be okay. Interesting new show. I'll wait and see what it's like.
Yeah.
Stargate by name only. You know what I mean? But the problem with Stargate is we had 17 years of it, didn't we? 17 years or 17 series.
17 seasons.
And seasons. Don't say series for the love of God. It's 3 series, 17 seasons. When I say series, and Americans get very angry at me, so sorry. 17 seasons, 2 movies, 1 obviously, and then the original movie. There's a lot happened, and by the end of SGU, humanity was very advanced. A lot had happened. It makes framing a new series quite hard, and for it to still be Stargatey.
Yeah.
So how do you start that new series? Even though there's been like 11 years now since SGU finished, I don't quite know how they do that and how they create a new series that basically isn't just Star Trek, and spaceships and things. The whole joy of Stargate wasn't it that it could be real, it could actually be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But Brad's already basically said that in his series, it would be known, the world would know about the Stargate because he said nothing else makes sense, and it's right. Nothing else, it wouldn't make any sense for it to still be a secret.
Yeah, I'm surprised they never done a disclosure in the run that we saw. Honestly, but yeah, you are right. We have got 17 seasons of all of this stuff that's happened. It is going to be incredibly difficult for Amazon to come up with a good story.
They'd have to do another like SGU type of thing, I think, where it would have to be a series.
Yeah.
In the comments, guys, tell us what you think. But it would have to be some sort of series that was a very closed storyline, so it exists in the universe of Stargate. But I don't think we could see another like SG-1 type series where it's a big, broad sort of series where anything can happen because so much has already happened. They're just going to end up pissing on canon every 5 minutes. They won't be able to write stories because there's so much stuff they have to remember. So they'd have to do something like SGU or something like that, where there's a team and it's in this universe, but it's trapped somewhere.
Well, I made a comment in one of our previous live streams that it's been 11 odd years. We're pretty stupid. Maybe we've lost some of the technology. The Asgard core, it probably just got blown up because it almost got blown up in the first 10 minutes I was having it the first time. So it probably happened again. I mean, the actual knowledge that we've gained, that's still going to be there, but the tech, we could lose it. Something could have happened. Maybe your theory of the Furlings, you know, ambassadors of the galaxy coming back to say, no, you're too advanced. They could just take all the technology away.
Bad humans. No more Asgard weapons.
Yeah. You advance too quickly. Too fast.
Yeah. You're advancing too quickly. You're going to kill yourselves. So we're going to take it away.
Yeah.
Maybe. I like that idea.
Or potentially, we are super advanced now, but power corrupts. What if we are we are technically the villain, but there is a branch of what we would probably say is the SGC, the good guys, fighting against, not fighting, they're causing trouble somehow.
Yeah. That could be right. And then there's an element within the SGC that are fighting against the corruption, which we saw in Stargate. In SG1, I love the episode. I love the political episodes in Stargate, which added to the realism to me. Like Senator Kinsey comes along and he's trying to shut the program down because it costs too much and the risks. And I'm like, this would happen. Government, some dickhead senator would come along and go, oh, well, I don't know about this. And, and would or make out that he knows better than everybody else. And would try and shut it down or something. So, yeah, if the government stepped in, there was now a civilian thing. The SGC were always rosy and the good guys, weren't they? But, in reality, we know governments aren't always to be trusted. Really?
The SGC wasn't all that good. The only people that were good, well, they were all good, but the driving force behind that being good would have been Daniel, Jack, and Hammond, and in later seasons, Landry and what's his name? Ben Browder. Mitchell. Like they were I would say the driving forces of being good, because there were corrupt SG members. We saw that in the episode where Jack
normally catch the NID or something else, weren't they?
Yeah. So as an organization, it's not necessarily they are the good guys. So now they're gone. Something could have happened. It could be now a corrupt organization.
Like you say, though, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And we would be the toughest fleet in the galaxy that we know of. Yeah. With the Asgard weapons. I
think it would be much
like the Lucian lines would be able to touch us. Sorry, mate.
It'd be much like how the Goa'uld rose to power. Like they stole technology. Obviously, we didn't steal it; we acquired it. But the act of getting it, I don't think matters. The fact that they had the technology so quickly, they then become corrupt. I mean, they were always kind of corrupt because they were evil, but they become more corrupt, especially with the sarcophagus technology. Like it just, in my head, it makes sense that there would be, we would essentially be the bad guys, because when I think narratively, there's a lot of shows that basically explore the idea that the government is corrupt now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's starting X-Files onwards, and nobody trusts the government anymore, do they? We just don't.
Yeah. And by extension, that might people might not then trust the military. So they could be like civilian branches, a kind of a military branch, but not US military.
Maybe, yeah. There's lots of ways they could do it, but I still think it's Star Trek rather than Stargate, that's what worries me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm told about what's going on at Amazon is that basically this project has been completely gone straight back to the drawing board. That they had several MGM were working on several ideas, including an Ancients prequel series, and they were developing story arcs and how these things would work, and doing all these ideas of what they thought Amazon wanted. And then when Amazon actually got control, they went, no, you're not doing that. We're not having that. So everything's gone back to the drawing board. These two guys, Hawk, Oastby. I want my name. I think I should be named Hawk from now on, or Eagle. Can I be called Eagle? I don't know. I was flapping my arms like a. But anyway, and Mark Fergus. I think,
or just Mockingjay.
Mockingjay. Oh, fuck off! I'm going to get that in the comments thing. I would love to see. Well, it seems to be very much that they're going back to the drawing board. I mean, bringing these guys in. They're not being. These guys haven't been brought in to write a script, from what I'm being told. They've been brought in to basically say, right, okay, if you were to do Stargate tomorrow, what would you do? And they've got a blank canvas pretty much. The only thing I've been told is they have been told it should stay in canon, so it wouldn't be a hard reboot. But even that's up for discussion. They have got a blank canvas, so what would you do with it? Which I like the idea. I like the idea that they've just gone, two guys that are very good at what they do, and like, we trust you to come back with it. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll get made. It may never see the light of day, but I do like the idea. I do like, at least, that my favorite TV show, Amazon are putting this much serious thought into it. They're not just going with the first thing. They're serious about wanting to make a decent product.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, you've got the possibility of, well, Atlantis was successful. SGU is debatable whether that was successful. I mean, I think people are coming around to the idea now. I thought it was good. Lots of other people did. But anyway, yeah, Atlantis was successful. Everyone can agree on that. Yeah. So maybe they could go down the route of keeping it in canon, but they're somewhere else. They're not necessarily on Earth. They're not in Pegasus. They're not on the Destiny. They're somewhere else. What about the Ida Galaxy, where the Asgard lived?
Yeah.
What about?
Yep.
I mean, there's as many planets as you can think of. There's more galaxies.
Yeah.
So they could go anywhere, and it could be something like they're trapped, which was the initial thing with Stargate Atlantis. They couldn't get back.
Yeah.
And
SGU.
And SGU. Obviously, we never saw the conclusion to that. So they could go down that route again. I just wouldn't want to see it centered around the Ancients this time. I'd like to see it somewhat not.
If they do an Ancient series, I'd like to be as well as something else. I'm happy to see an Ancients prequel series. I think it would be brilliant, actually.
I'd love to see an Ancients prequel, 100%. But if they were doing
it in a year or two, if the main show does well.
Yeah, if they were doing a main show, I'd like it to be something completely separate to the Ancients.
Yeah.
Because I think they did rely a little bit too heavily on it towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be nice to go back to the original story, adventure of the week, go through the Stargate, see what you can discover, find technology, and try and get technologies to beat whoever the big bad is in this particular galaxy or location that you're in now.
Yeah. No, I'd be okay with that. So the downside, though, of this rumor that Amazon are willing to completely scrap all of it. And I remember Brad Wright himself said on the 25th anniversary special he did with Richard Dean Anderson that he doesn't think his script will ever see the light of day. So he we can infer from that he doesn't even think it's going to get made now. Because I was actually told not long before that Amazon was seriously still considering it, and he was in the driving seat. But then there were voices within Amazon that didn't like the way he'd gone with it, and it seems like those voices won out in the end anyway. But that, if this rumor is true about Hawk and Mark, then that means no Brad Wright, or does it?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean Brad Wright's not going to be involved if they're going to be writing and producing it, or even if I think they're just writers, aren't they? Or did they produce as well?
They produced. They were executive producers and producers for The Expanse.
So if they were just doing that, doesn't mean Brad can't showrun.
Yeah, and I think that Brad Wright's not said anything, as far as I know, publicly either way. But he's definitely not. Even if his script doesn't get made, I would say bring him in as a showrunner. It makes complete sense to me. And obviously these guys didn't showrun The Expanse. You know, they developed it, they produced it, they wrote some episodes for it. You know, so I don't think any reason why not. But if Brad Wright was not involved in this at all, does it only matter? Well, if they do a good show, doesn't matter, right? Who cares if Brad Wright isn't involved? Sadly, I mean, you know, I don't want to put it that way, but
I think there's a lot of emphasis being put on we want Stargate, but we also want Brad Wright. What we can all agree on is we want Stargate.
Yeah.
Whether or not Brad's involved, that's not up to us. But we hope he is. But if he's not, we're still going to watch it. It's Stargate.
We'll still give it a chance. I mean, I would. I mean, you know, the first thing, if it's rubbish, the first thing a lot of people say was, "Well, you should have put Brad Wright in charge."
Yeah. See, I think they will still have Brad involved to some capacity because they know that we want Brad. So whether he's just show on it for the first season or his name's on the credits somewhere, like co-produced by Brad Wright, just having his name on there will appease fans, and then they can slowly phase him out if they really want to. Once we know how it's going.
See, one story that I did hear, and I have heard it a couple of times, was that Amanda Tapping was going to be potentially come back as showrunner. She's never showrunner on any show previously, but she has been executive producer. She has directed. She's quite a well respected director. It would just be the next step up for her. Her show that she runs at the moment, Salem's something or other, is coming to an end. So the timing might be fortuitous. And I've been told that has been something that's been discussed and even discussed potentially with Amanda Tapping. I mean, Brad Wright even talked about her coming back directing and what have you. But maybe she could come back in a more formal, you know, actually as the showrunner. And I think if they don't come on with Brad, for whatever reason, if they decide we're not going with Brad, they would have to bring in somebody from the original, or fans will. I think again, guys, you say yes or no in the comments. If there's no Brad, will you be tempted not to watch the series? So would you watch the series? Yes, anyway, or would you not watch the series? And we'll just see how many no's fly up, because I think it might be a few. There are some people that are just like Brad Wright or nothing.
Yeah. That's the problem when it comes to reviving a show. You want it to be exactly the same as it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, Brad was in the driving seat for the entirety of everything we know about Stargate, but
if you want someone that knows the law,
not necessarily a bad thing.
But if you want somebody that knows the law, you have Brad Wright, don't you? Because he knows the story.
Yeah. I mean, if Amanda Tapping did become the showrunner, I don't think fans would have an issue with that. Brad Wright would give his blessing. He'd do it publicly, and everyone would be on board with it. If they kind of just pushed him out, and he was still tweeting that he still going on about his script that he really wants to get out there, I think that would hurt the new show's chances.
I can't see Brad doing that, to be honest. I think it would be if I was an executive at Amazon, and for whatever reason, if I didn't want Brad involved and I wanted to shut him up, you put Amanda Tapping in, because he's not going to say anything negative about the show or Amanda Tapping. But I don't think Brad Wright would do that anyway. I don't think Brad Wright will say anything negative about the show, even if it's not Amanda Tapping. He doesn't seem like that sort of person to me. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He's not an unkind, spiteful person. I think he'd just go, okay, that's business. That's that's the industry we live in, and that's So I don't think he would either way, anyway, to be honest. But I could see Amanda Tapping doing it, and I think she's got the skills to do it if they wanted to. But I suspect they won't, though. I suspect they'll bring in somebody new. I think they want to Kurtzman this thing with Star Trek. They want to bring in somebody completely new and go in a different direction with it. And it'll still feel like Stargate, but it'll be going in a different direction, I think. Whereas Canon is there in the background, but they don't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
I think that's where they're going to go.
I mean, there is an argument to be made when going back to the hard reboot side of things. There's been 11 years since the show's been on the air. It started airing in the 90s. People who are generally watching new series now, like Stranger Things, etc., they're all really young. They weren't even born when Stargate first came out. So the chances of them actually going back and watching all the original seasons is very, very small. There are going to be the outliers who will do it, but they're going to need to cater to the new audience and explain things to explain who these characters are, where they came from. So the hard reboot would get around that.
Yeah,
because it's going to be very difficult to start a new series and say, oh yeah, this is a series continuing from 10 years ago when you were 3 years old.
That is a good point. They're not going to go back and necessarily watch it all again. So if you don't worry about catering to that audience, but I always think though with sci-fi, and it's why Star Trek confuses me so much under Kurtzman with Discovery and Strange New Worlds, really, because that's very at risk. That's already peeing on canon. Sci-fi fans tend to get a bit anal about these things. They do tend to be a bit. They actually remember the canon and they get quite annoyed. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think canon's important, but I don't go crazy on it. I'm not like one of these people who go, well, that's the wrong color, and I don't go that far. But I do think the history of what happens in the series, particularly the seminal points. If you have a war with the Romulans, you shouldn't just forget about it in Discovery. Or Spock shouldn't just all of a sudden have a new sister and things like that. So if Stargate comes back and they were to hard reboot it, and O'Neill, all of a sudden his son wasn't dead or something, that would be a problem for me, because I'm like, no, that's an important point of the character. I wouldn't care if he was a black guy. I wouldn't care. I was going to say I wouldn't care if he was a woman then, but that might be going a bit far. But I wouldn't care about that sort of thing. But I would care if they changed who O'Neill was. That's the point. That is the big point of O'Neill. And I'd like to see him still wisecracking and but
see, I think they could still bring O'Neill back. It wouldn't be Richard Dean Anderson though. They could bring a new character and have him be Jack O'Neill, and in canon explain it as that's the clone.
That's the clone, yeah. His clone could come back, and that would be fine. I would think that's a little silly myself, but it's in canon, so why not?
Yeah.
There's lots of things they could do. I hope they don't do, and I'm afraid they might, because this game Timekeepers is coming out, and one thing I was told, 6 or 9 months ago, was that, and this came from Amazon actually, that they wanted to create the series in and around. On a multi-format, so that the game would become canon. So that and this guy actually told me, I don't speak to him anymore, unfortunately. He doesn't work in the industry anymore. But he told me at the time, look at the storyline of Timekeepers, and that'll tell you a lot about what they're planning to do with Stargate in the future. And Timekeepers is jumping through time. Time is broken. They use the Stargate to jump through time because of a solar flare or some nonsense, and they says, and that will tell you a lot about it, which leads me on to think they'll do a timelines version of this, or a multiverse version. So they'll say they'll say it's not a hard reboot, even though everything's different, because it's a different universe.
Because time's changed and they need to fix it, but they can't fix it. They can only fix it a certain way, to the way that Amazon now are envisioning it.
Yeah, so it'll be a J.J. Abrams version of Stargate, the Kelvin timeline, and I hate that idea. Yeah. I think it's lazy, but it's a way around a lot of the problems. And there are problems that if they do a new series, it is going to be hard. That's why it's taking so long. Whatever anybody else says, all these videos and things that are coming out saying, why is Stargate taking so long? And a lot of them, it is partly because MGM is a mess. That is true. But a big problem of why we haven't got anything announced or things, they don't know what to do with it. It's hard to come up with a storyline that makes sense because there's so much before it. The easy thing to do is do a hard reboot. That's the easy thing to do. Or a different universe. So if they did do a hard reboot, and they just scrapped it and started again, what is that a problem?
It's a problem for us as people who have watched Stargate, but new people coming into the franchise, it wouldn't be an issue for them. They wouldn't care.
No.
I think the general audience for Stargate is actually pretty old. I think isn't it like 40 to 60-year-olds?
Yeah, that's going to be the demographic for the original. That's where we are now. Yeah, I watched it from the start. I'm 44 years old now.
Yeah,
and I watched it first time round. Okay, so if you did a hard reboot, would you have the Goa'uld in it? Is that where you'd start from the movie?
I don't think they could they? But going back to what I was saying earlier, having I guess you could. It just wouldn't. They couldn't do the same ones. They couldn't start with Apophis and then go on to a new Sokar and then go on to Anubis. Like you couldn't do it in the same order.
No,
but I guess you could have the same Goa'uld. I mean, if they start with Baal.
Do you have to have any of those guys, though, or do you just have the Goa'uld as a species, then have totally new ones? Or do you start again with Ra?
I mean, they could just have the Goa'uld, but not have them be a Egyptian god at all. They could just have completely different names.
Yeah, I would accept a reboot of Space 1999. That was ages ago and only had 2 seasons. But Stargate had run it for a very long time, and no one has forgotten it yet, which is a very, very good point at the end of the day. You can reboot things that are old because nobody watched it. Like Lost in Space, to be fair to me, I actually quite like that. Kind of a bit boring at times, but I didn't have a problem with them doing a hard reboot because the series is so old. You know, why not?
Yeah.
And there is stories about them doing a reboot of like a Space Odyssey 2001 and making it into a series. And again, I have no problem with that. A movie from 40, 50 years ago. I have no problem with that. But the series, it's not that old, you know. So I think, yeah, Mr. Rio has a really good point there. I will always read out super chats. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and there's older franchises for sure. When you got Star Trek, you got Stargate. They're older than Stargate.
Kirkman basically rebooted Star Trek though, and it hadn't been off our screens that long.
Yeah, and Disney has basically rebooted Star Wars.
Have they though?
Love it or hate it, I think they have. The prequel, like the sequels, as a fan of Star Wars, I absolutely hate. But the series, The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, fantastic. And that's brought in a lot more people who are now fans of Star Wars as a result. And I think that's good for the franchise.
But aren't they just telling different stories within the universe? That's more of a soft reboot, isn't it? I mean, I wish they'd stick to a timeline, so I don't have to get a bloody choreography, or I have to have a think about where does this fit in the thing. And Andor's coming out. That generally took me about 20 minutes to figure out where it fit in the universe.
Yeah,
but they're just stories from the universe.
Rogue One, isn't it?
We could see Stargate do the same thing and have stories from outside to have different. We could have Jaffa stories or something like that.
Yeah.
That's wrong, doesn't it? The story about the Jaffa. It sounds like I'm saying something dirty, but I'm not. But would it be Stargate? Is it a big enough? I mean, I think this is the best sci-fi on TV, but is it big enough to get away with doing that?
I don't think a Jafar series would work.
No, but
it might do later on. it could do, but I don't think early on it would work just because people won't have the attachments to Jafar, and I don't think there's many stories you can tell to Jafar that aren't already told by the Goa'uld anyway.
Yeah. So now I think they would have to, if they did a reboot, a hard reboot, and they started again, they would have to go back and basically remake the original movie as well. Or they would start off with a movie like this rumor that Kurt Russell might make a sequel to the movie. I'm going to reiterate again, I don't think that rumor's true. People seem to keep thinking that I've said that rumor's true and it's happening. It's not. I heard that they've talked to Kurt Russell and thought about it, but I actually said in the video quite clearly, I don't think this rumor's true. I don't think it'll happen. And now the rumor about them talking to him might be true, but they talked to him 5 years ago, so we know it's true. I just don't think the film will ever happen. I don't think they'll do it. But they could do a reboot and just ignore the TV series, in which case the Goa'uld are still a threat and they just do it a different way. But the Goa'uld are quite different in the original movie. So do they get rid of the snakehead thing and go back to the original version of the Goa'uld?
Where they look more like the Asgard.
When they go, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of the story was almost identical. But you know, like the way Ra was different. You know, it was a little bit different. I would say it was a lot more fleshed out in the TV series myself. But do they just ignore the TV series and go back to the original movie? And could you imagine, right, what most Gators will say if they do that?
Yeah, I can see it now. If they rebooted it and it was completely different, everyone would be up in arms.
Yeah,
but I'm thinking more. I'm playing devil's advocate by thinking about how Amazon will see it. They're not going to be. They're going to be thinking long term about this. They're going to want a franchise that's going to last a while.
Yeah,
catering towards people who are old.
Yeah, and they want this to be They want this to be their Star Trek. That's what they would ideally like. They think they've got the sleeping giant of sci-fi now, and they want it to be their Star Trek.
Yeah,
you know, so they are thinking long term, definitely.
See, I think it could be. It could be good. It could be fantastic. A reimagining of everything we've seen before.
Mm.
I'm thinking of this as we're talking about it, just thinking of how it could go, what it could look like with the current with the budgets that Amazon would probably give to it, the CGI that we've got, the technology we've got now, and the storytelling now is in scripted television is a lot better than it was back then. Yeah. I think it could be fantastic.
Yeah. I always think about things because one of the things I've always said is they're not going to do a hard reboot, and we've actually seen the evidence of that because they spoke to Roland Emmerich, and he said Roland Emmerich, they were talking about doing the movie, and again, that's other evidence to say why why this conversation about this Kurt Russell movie has actually happened. But I think it was a while ago, to be honest, as well. I was going to say I think that conversation happened about 18 months ago. But anyway, because Roland Emmerich said they spoke to me about it, but I got very much the impression that the audience is what mattered, so I'm not interested. And we know that happened because he said it publicly. But that was with MGM. That was not a conversation with Amazon. So
and everything that they said to MGM, anything that was said to MGM now doesn't matter, and even if it was written in stone, then that stone's been destroyed.
It's completely gone. And see, even it seems to be though that right. So a lot of things I've said about what Amazon have said about Stargate as well and stuff is stuff that was being told to MGM. It now seems very clear that Amazon were lying to MGM. That Amazon were telling MGM executives and things, because that would filter down to the staff, lots of things they just wanted to hear, that they were telling MGM, Amazon are going to come in, we're just going to be like a customer, you're still going to be able to do your marvelous, do whatever you want to do, we're not going to impose on MGM, we love MGM, We love your creativity. We want to protect you, not destroy you. And that was very clearly not true, because within a couple of weeks of the Amazon's it finally going through the FTC, Amazon's hammer came down, and the two chief executives left, were retired, and all of the different departments under MGM came under the equivalent Amazon executives. So they took over lock, stock, and barrel. They got rid of a load of MGM employee. Any employee that was on a short-term contract, they got rid of them. The hammer came down. So it was very strange that it seemed to me that Amazon were just saying the right things because they wanted it to go through the FTC as quickly as possible, and they knew that if the MGM employees were on board and not kicking up a fuss, it would go through easy.
Yeah.
Because their excuses of it was COVID stopped us from doing it, is just BS. Because they knew about the COVID impact 2 years ago. They're not stupid.
And COVID was pretty much towards the end by the time the deal actually went through.
Look at this, Shelley, who runs our Facebook group, who is amazing, and bought you. Right, I'm jealous of a cup I designed. I designed that freaking cup, and Shelley's bought it off side-trek.com, and it's freaking gorgeous. I really, really want it. I'm going to have to buy myself a mug. But thank you for the contribution, and thank you, as always, for your support, Shelley. You're amazing. Dodging traffic. Please don't get run over. I need you to look after the Facebook group. Monster. But yeah. So as I was saying, Amazon lied. They just lied.
I'm surprised there wasn't an investigation afterwards.
Well, no, because it's gone through the FTC. They didn't. It was no anything formally that was agreed. They haven't breached. It was just conversations, like informal conversations. Like, we'll do this, we'll do that. That's no promises that ever had to be kept.
Yeah, so that's the problem with these mergers. They know exactly how to say certain things to get you on side, don't they? They know if they don't have it written down on this contract, they don't have to legally, but morally.
Yeah, but that's the problem, isn't it? You can't investigate moral stuff or informal conversations that would just happen between two people. It's just like, oh yeah, this is what we want to do, but now they'll just say it is what we wanted to do, promise, but now because of COVID we can't. So then that's it, isn't it? So
it's such a cop-out excuse, the COVID thing. Every company is using it for, like, their fridge. The fridge stops working in the staff room, and they blame it on COVID. Yeah. Like, it's so stupid. It's just one of those.
I'm sorry, but again, they knew. The country, the world shut down for 12 months, 18 months. They're not thick. They knew that there was then going to be an economic crisis. They knew that what was going to happen, So, no, it will be used as an excuse. But them saying we didn't see it coming, nah, not true. Not even remotely. I'm not having that.
Yeah.
So, a hard reboot. I think we can agree then that it's a head and heart situation for me. Head and heart. Head and heart situation for me. My heart says I don't want a hard reboot of Stargate. I don't want them to wipe out what came before, I want it to, I don't want them just to ignore it. That's no, it's wrong. But my head says, oh God, it might be a better show if they do. If you give new writers the chance to just do something new and without having the chains of what come before wrapped around their neck, it might make a better show. Might not.
Yeah.
So it's a head and heart decision, but the heart always wins over the head. It does. When there's that pretty girl that your heart goes, oh, I really like her, but your head goes, yeah, she's, I think she might be a bit easy, and I think she fancies my brother more than she likes me. You still hit on her. You still try and get her to go to the cinema, and you still, because your heart wins out. It always does.
I think that might be the problem. We definitely want a continuation. Our heads are thinking, yeah, maybe a hard reboot would be good, and then Amazon might be doing it the opposite way to us, and then they'll go with their heads. They'll do a hard reboot. It'll be fantastic. We might like it, but what if it doesn't do well? that is Stargate done.
Yeah, it will be the end of Stargate. Yeah, but I mean that's true either way. If they go hard reboot or not hard reboot, if it doesn't succeed, I very much doubt we'll ever see it again. Saying that, Discovery didn't do well, and it spawned Strange New Worlds, which is done brilliantly. So
yeah,
so who knows? I suppose it depends on what. So we've got to remember as well, Amazon and streaming services don't care about viewing figures; they care about subscribers. And if enough people say, "I subscribe to Amazon for Stargate," they'll keep it. You know, it's one of the main reasons why I'm absolutely certain that The Expanse is going to come back. It doesn't get great viewing figures, but enough people adore it. You know, it's got that cult status that, you know, people actually will say, if asked, if we bring back The Expanse, will you subscribe to Amazon Prime? And they say yes. You know,
yeah,
I won't watch anything else. I just want to watch it. I just want to watch. That's what Stargate. That's what they want Stargate to be for them. Like Star Trek is for Paramount Plus now. There's a lot of people that just watch Paramount Plus, and we say this every week, but they watch Paramount Plus because of Star Trek.
yeah.
You know, and
Netflix have got it all wrapped up. They've got loads of shows that people will only get Netflix for because of that, like Stranger Things, Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, lots of cult series. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, things like Stranger Things is quite a rarity because it's actually very commercially successful. It's very, very popular. A lot of their other series necessarily aren't, but yeah. So here's one of the guys actually. Jung Lee has just jumped in. I think this channel is nothing but rooms. He's one of the guys that was sending all the messages that made me just go. Anyway, so yeah. So I think that's where we're at the moment. I don't know whether I think what we want is irrelevant as well. I think an element of that. I think Brad Wright could come in and just do a bad series anyway.
Yeah.
And I think whatever happens, I think you're 100% right that if whatever happens, if it's not a very good series, it will be the end of Stargate. It'll die. And maybe, I mean, I'm sure Amazon executives know that. And at the end of the day, they're going to spend 150 million quid plus maybe on this series. Nobody does that without trying to make sure it's a good product. And then nobody intentionally makes a bad series today. So they're not going to go, let's make a pile of crap that nobody will like. Nobody does that. But
I mean, just thinking more how I'd want it to play out. In my head, they'd bring Stargate back. It'd be a continuation of what we know and love. Mm-hmm. If it does well, fantastic. If it doesn't, okay. Then they can do a hard reboot. Then they can explore all of the rebooting the movie and reboot the series as a reimagining of it. And if that does well, fantastic. I'll watch it because it's still Stargate.
Yeah.
But I think I'd want the continuation first. I'd want something in canon first.
Yeah. I think that's how if it was me and I was in charge, I would be saying we need something in continuation of canon, a main series, an SG-1 style, something or other, and then go and then we'd love a prequel, we'd love something else, we'd love some little series. I actually think is going to happen though, and this is just my opinion. Well, no, it's my opinion based on what I've been told and obviously based on what we know about how all of these series are made. But I think they will go the Star Wars direction of like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and all the other TV series that are coming, and they will do 10 episodes. We know 100% it's going to be 10 episodes, 10 or 12 episodes in a run. But each series, we might have 2 or 3 series a year, but each series would be like a different chapter in a book and might be aimed on different characters or based around slightly different storylines. We might even see just like a one-off ancient storyline that then feeds into something else in a more modern. I think that's what they'll do.
Yeah, that works well with the timekeepers theory as well. What you just said.
Yeah,
different theory, different series in different times. So you'd have your Ancients prequel, which you all want. You'd have something to do with the Goa'uld. You'd have something to do with something in the future, a new threat.
Yeah. I would love to see just a one series, 10 episodes, where it starts off with the Destiny getting launched, right? So the series for me is Destiny getting like the first 2 or 3 episodes are all about why they built the Destiny, actually constructing it, and then launching it. And then the series ends with those crew because they said apparently in the comics they're saying some of the crew that actually built Ancients built it were actually in stasis on the Destiny, and they woke up and they basically saved the SGU crew. So that's what I would love to see. That 10 episodes, 10 or 12 episodes, starts with the launch, ends with them actually saving Eli. That'd be a cool little season. I got to stop saying series, haven't I? Season. Oh no, that would be a series because that would be standalone. But that could be so cool. But that wouldn't. I don't think you could start the series with that. It would have to be only hardcore fans to watch that. As well, the other thing, and that you're not bringing in new fans with that. Is what I'm saying. So you couldn't start a series with that, but you could say 2 or 3 in. Particularly if you did this like chapters in a book sort of idea where you can jump between characters and stories, but they all sort of intertwine with each other. I think that'd be awesome. I'd watch that. I didn't even like SGU, and I still watch the shit out of
that. I'd like to see an episode or 3 episodes or a whole season of, as you say, the Destiny. Because in the Back to Destiny comics, it did explain a few things. They've got the Ancients that were on board were engineers, and they weren't actually meant to be there. Destiny was launched prematurely.
Oh yeah,
I think by accident, whilst they were still on board, someone had pressed a button, and then they were like, "Oh, fine, we're just getting stasis."
I must touch red button.
But that'd be so cool. And obviously, Eli then inadvertently woke one of them up, who then woke up the others, who then like knocked them out and whatever. But that also brought in one of my favorite pieces of lore, which isn't canon, and I really want it to be. The communication stones.
Yeah.
One of the Ancients in the throwaway comic goes, "Oh, we just use those as kids' toys."
Yeah. The most important thing in the world to us. Yeah, I just think that'd be a really cool series. I'd love to see that.
Because it could start with, as you say, we could see how the Destiny was launched and stuff like that, and they could flesh it out a little bit more, and it can end with eventually Eli and everyone getting saved.
Do you think? I think the saddest thing for me, though, if they did do a hard reboot, the thing that I would love to see Daniel come back. I'd love to see Michael Shanks come back. I'd love to see General Carter. I don't want to see series with these characters as main characters, but I'd love to see him come back in little bit parts. General Carter as the leader of the SGC or something like that would be great. And if we get a hard reboot, we're not going to get that. And I think that would be the thing I would be most disappointed by. I'd love to see Richard Dean Anderson just one more time. But it's a catch-22 though, isn't it? Because we always want, with a new series, we want it to be like the old series, but we also demand that it's new and different. Because if it's like the old series, we'll just go, well, it's just the same as the original series.
It's hard, isn't it? Because we want so much, but we don't know what we want, and they don't know what we want.
We're like children, aren't we, at Christmas?
They don't know what they want. They don't know what we want, so it's hard for them, but it's hard for us watching in the background, just being like, make us something good. No, not like that. Not like that. Not like that. Not like that.
Whatever they do, somebody will hate it. Somebody will do a hate video on YouTube months before it comes out, saying that it's going to be woke pile of crap anyway, before it's even been released. So that's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about it.
Where are you finding these comics? Kevin McGabe just commented, I found the Back to Destiny comics. I just literally just typed in Back to Destiny PDF free. There's a website. It's full of ads. So if you've got an ad blocker, use that. But it was free. I didn't pay for it.
Yeah. I bought them.
Yeah, they are on Amazon. You can buy them, but
they weren't very much when I bought them, but I think they're quite expensive now because they're quite collectibles now. But I bought them about 10 years ago. I bought them years ago. I bought them not long after they came out. So I don't even think they're released like openly in the UK. So I got them
I've never
shipped
seen them in the UK.
United States, I think.
You can't buy physical copies on Amazon. You can only buy the Kindle versions.
Oh, I bought physical copies years ago, and I don't think I bought it from Amazon. Actually, I think I bought it from a comic book website thing.
Forbidden Planet probably would have done them years ago.
I can't remember now. It was so long ago I bought them. But I say that, it kind of been 10 years ago. It was 7 or 8 years ago? Something like that anyway.
Yeah, I think it was like 2016 they come out.
Yeah, it was when it came out I bought them. So, but yeah, I mean, they were great. But I'm just such a geek. I listened to all those stories that they did as well on I think that are coming back now, those audio stories that they did. They were great as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna purchase them.
But you know, let's see what they do. At the end of the day, we don't know what they're going to do. Like young, whatever the hell his name is, I don't know. The Pratt who mentioned earlier. No, he's not a Pratt. He's a lovely human being, I'm sure. Jungly mentioned earlier this. We know we're talking about rumors, and we are. And the problem is, we're going to hear more rumors. Chances are, and all of these things, they could go into a meeting, Amazon, in 6 months' time, and have all these different options in front of them, and they can just go, "No, we're not doing any of it." Or, "No, I tell you what, we're going to do something completely different," and then and green light it the next day, and we'll hear about it officially the next day. Because that's how these things work, unfortunately. Nothing is definite until a decision is made.
Yeah.
And as we've already seen, you know, MGM had a product that they wanted. I was told that they'd only done that. They only sort of like were trying to push through Stargate as quickly as they could because they were trying to get more money out of Amazon, basically. Or more money out of the sale because it would be more valuable as an operational franchise rather than just an intellectual property. And it was only because of COVID we don't have Stargate now. You know, even Brad Wright says we were 5 Chevrolettes were locked. We were ready to go. You know, we were nearly there. We had the pilot script. COVID hit. You know, we should be on our 3rd season of Stargate now.
Yeah.
You know, if we hadn't have had COVID. But now Amazon have completely put the kibosh on it. So let's see what happens. So instant chat as always, young Matthew. I let you speak this time, so that's good.
You did.
And, I only told you to
shut up once.
No, I know. So you've done really well. There will be a Shut Up Matt t-shirt available on siderstrek.com at some point I get around to it. I meant to do it this weekend and it got away from me. It doesn't even take that long. I don't know I'm being such a lazy ass. But I will get a few more designs on there shortly to try and, you know, get sales. So, but anyway, guys, everyone that's watched tonight and everyone that's commented in the side chat, particularly guys that have done that nice little super chats for us, thank you so much. The contribution really helps the channel. I hope to one day not have to go to work at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And, you know, actually, I would love to be able to do this a little bit more thing, but I can't do that without money. And my wife won't let me unless we make money. So, unfortunately, I'd love to do this for free, but I can't. So every little bit of help you guys give really, really means that we can keep going. Thank you, Matt, for giving us your time this evening.
It's been a pleasure, as always.
As always. We freaking love it. I will announce while we guys got on that I'm going to be starting a video, live video once a week on a Wednesday night with my old mate Dave. Where we talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. I used to have a channel I used to have a channel called The Machine. A lot of you guys will know me from there, the regular subscribers. We're going to start doing that again on a Wednesday. Not doing anything in particular, you know, but just whatever subject interests us. We're going to start with facts that we find out that you go, what? That like sound so ridiculous they can't be true, but are. And that's going to be our first video, hopefully next week. So that's an announcement. There you go. And that'll be on the Sidetrek Sides channel. So please go over to the Sidetrek Sides channel and subscribe now. There should be a link in the description. But I rushed a bit today, so I haven't actually checked. So thank you again, Matt. Thank you, everybody. we will see you very soon.
Yeah, I'll just link the Star Trek size channel.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. But like I said, it should be in the description. Guys, thank you. Have a lovely evening. As always, please stay safe. Say goodbye, Matt.
Goodbye, Matt.
Look at you. You managed to look at the camera. Well done.